Welcome to Storied, the untold Jewish stories behind your favorite music. Season 1, The Beatles. This project started off as a live show created in partnership with the Berman Theater at the J Detroit, and has grown exponentially since then, including shows about other bands and other genres. Now we're doing this podcast where in each episode we're going to dive deep into the history and the legacy of most of our favorite band, and that is the Beatles, focusing on where Jews and the Jewish community contributed and collaborated to their stardom. Each episode begins with a recording from our live show telling a quick and high-level version of the story, followed by this episode, this deep dive really getting into it, as I interview some really special guests. It's no secret Jewish events today can be appropriately hard. We have some serious issues that we're grappling with as a community, and they often require a box of tissues and a therapy appointment afterwards. The Storied live show was conceived and developed at the J in Detroit in partnership with the Berman Theater, not as the answer to this problem, but as an answer to this problem. We are focused on a positive narrative, Jewish joy, and reminding people about the great contributions made by the Jewish community. We're excited to see Storied grow with this podcast and many more live shows. Now, you may be here because you're a Beatles fan, or you may be here because you're looking for positive Jewish content. In either case, our intent is for all of your delight, and I think you're going to get there. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see this awesome Storied shirt that I'm wearing, and it was designed and made by a sponsor of the show, Jonah Tees. Now, Jonah Tees makes awesome custom merch and some really great Jewish-themed merch, like the ones you're seeing popping up on the screen here. If you're listening on an audio feed, pop over to YouTube just to see what I'm showing you, because it's worth it, and I think you're going to like it. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, we would love to talk to you. Check out the links in the story notes, including our website, www.storied.show, for more information about who we are, what we do, the other bands and genres we've covered, or how we can bring this live show to your city. If you like what we've done here, please leave us a review and maybe some stars. If you have any questions, hit us up on our socials. We'd love to hear from you. All the links, again, are in the show notes. And with that, let's get this show on the long and winding road. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 8. This is a big one. Today we've got Jonah Platt, the host of the #1 Jewish podcast called Being Jewish with Jonah Platt. Now, I'm going to hold off on giving him all the compliments in the world because I do a lot of that at the beginning of the episode. But I will just tell you that I truly believe that the intro monologues at the beginning of Jonah's podcast are truly some of the great essays in modern Jewish culture. If you're not a listener of his podcast, you don't need to commit. You should, but you don't need to commit yourself to those. Commit yourself to listening to the first couple minutes of his podcast, because his monologues are spectacular. Jonah, don't be mad at me for telling people that they don't need to listen to the full episode of your podcasts. Now, today we're talking about the two Beatles movies, Help and A Hard Day's Night, and the Jewish producers and Jewish directors who really made those movies happen, and that is Dick Lestard and Bud Ornstein. And one of the things that I love about this episode is that Jonah came prepared to throw down the gauntlet. He knows this material so well. He's such a huge fan of the Beatles and of film and theater and the arts and the things that he knows passionately. He was able to just roll up his sleeves and tell the stories and talk about the history, and really do so in a wonderfully entertaining and eloquent way. It's evident that he's both a fan and a scholar in this subject matter. Now, included in the conversation is Jonah's qualifications as the Jewish podcaster. And for those who don't know this, he's a musician and he plays shows, and he often does Beatles covers, but he was also on Broadway playing Fiyero in Wicked. And my kids were absolutely thrilled when they heard that I was interviewing Fiyero. As expected, we talked a lot about Jewish advocacy and the state of the world, ranging in a spectrum of incredible Jewish advocates, from Chaviv Reddick-Gur to Chris Cares None to Timothy Chalamet and Adam Sandler, and that is quite the spectrum. But we had an incredible conversation that summed up what a lot of these Jewish characters today look like. Now, it's important to note that this episode was recorded a number of weeks ago, before the 20 live hostages came home, before another 15 hostages as of today who had been murdered by Hamas had come home, before there was even a conversation about this. So the things that you're hearing discussing our advocacy do not include current events as of today. And if this podcast was being recorded today, it would be recorded different. It's just important for you to know that those parts of the conversations are already outdated. It doesn't change the importance of the conversations, and that's okay. So with that caveat, I just want to tell you that you can help me if you can. I'm feeling down, and I appreciate you being around. And won't you please help me get my feet on the ground? Won't you please help me and listen to this episode? When you think of the Beatles' foray into the world of cinema, two films immediately come to mind, and it's pretty obvious. It's The Hard Day's Night in 1964 and Help in 1965. These two groundbreaking movies revolutionized the way that music was presented on the big screen. At the helm of both of those projects was the visionary Jewish director named Richard Lester Liebman. And Dick was no stranger to pushing the boundaries of filmmaking. His unique style and zany humor perfectly captured the essence of the swinging 60s, and his collaboration with the Beatles would go down in history as a defining moment for both music and cinema. But Lester wasn't the only Jewish figure behind the scenes in these iconic films. Producer Walter Shenson and Bud Ornstein, both Jewish, played crucial roles in bringing the Beatles' silver screen dreams to life. The result was A Hard Day's Night, a film that not only showcased the exaggerated and yet simplified version of the Beatles' personalities, it also served as a very highly effective marketing tool. Lester's innovation in filming techniques, especially the multi-angle shots of live performances, would go on to influence the creation of music videos for decades to come. In fact, MTV honored him with the award dubbing him the father of music video. Many of you are probably familiar with Jonah Platt, who, again, I interviewed for the podcast to tell this story more. And he talked about how those gentlemen's influence in filmmaking, as amazing as it was in the Beatles, their influence in filmmaking really changed the way that you and I watch movies today. And this is one of my favorite interviews. But the Beatles' cinematic ambitions didn't stop with Lester. In a fascinating what-if scenario, the band expressed interest in starring in an adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, with none other than Jewish producer Stanley Kubrick at the helm. Unfortunately, Kubrick declined, and he left me wondering, and now leaving you wondering, what would the Beatles-led, Kubrick-directed Middle-earth adventure look like? So I asked ChatGPT, and that's the answer. That's horrifying. That's not a pleasurable thing. I don't know what that is. Hey, before we get to this interview, I want to take a moment and thank our new sponsor, Tequila Kosher Spirits. And they make the kosher tequila that I am seeing popping up around Detroit. And if you know me personally, or if you follow my social media, you'll know that I'm sober and I don't drink. But when I go to different Jewish events and I hear this topic come up, everybody has really great things to say about it. So I'm excited that Tequila reached out and said that they wanted to sponsor the podcast. Every special Chaim deserves a special spirit, but finding high quality kosher spirits is near impossible. Until now. So we're introducing Tequila Kosher Tequila, the world's first Jewish-inspired tequila, celebrating culture, community, and tradition. Tequila is 100% kosher and 100% additive-free. Check it out at buy.tequilaspirits.com for a smooth tequila blanco and bold tequila reposado. Tequila, l'chaim like you mean it. The link is in the show notes. Now let's hear this interview. All right, so we are here in studio, digital studio, not in-person studio, with Jonah Platt. Jonah, it's wonderful to see you. How are you today?
Great to be here. I'm doing awesome in beautiful New York.
That's amazing. I haven't been in New York in a minute, but I'm there a couple times a year generally.
It couldn't be better today.
Yeah. So I have a funny / serendipitous story to tell you of how we got to this point. Okay.
Hit me.
So I've been working on planning for this podcast for close to a year now. And I've had a hit list of these are the people that I want to do the podcast, knowing that I've got 4 seasons already that I need to do with Storied. Beatles, grunge, Grateful Dead, and reggae, and that's without
cool.
looking at what we do in 2026. And you've been on that list, right? Because you're a Jewish community advocate, and you have some really amazing things to say, and I really love the things that you do. And what was it, 2 weeks ago on Instagram, you posted a video of you singing with a band, and you said apparently, or so it's come to my attention that some people didn't know what I did before October 7th. And I was like, well, shit, I'm one of those people. I've got no idea what he did before October 7th. And I watched that video and I was like, oh my God. And then I went down like a 45-minute rabbit hole of Jonah Platt's career. And I was like, I have to have him on this podcast season 1. Like, this has to happen. So I'm really grateful that you posted that video, if for no other reason than it opened my eyes.
I love that. I'm glad to hear that. It's telling me it was worthwhile content. So that's good.
It was, yeah. Whether you got 1 million views or just me, it worked.
No, I got a handful. I mean, I posted it because the night before I had posted a live video of me singing Hatikva at a Jewish event, which I will often do for folks who know me as a singer and musician. And so many people, I realized, were like, wow, I didn't know you could sing like that. And I was like, guys, come on. I guess I have to do a little refresher here.
This is my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Exactly.
Well, I get that a lot when I'm talking to people about advocacy or Storied or other things. And they're like, what do you do for a living, by the way? And I'm like, well, I'm a commercial real estate broker by trade. And they're like, wait a second, I need to talk to you about it. I'm like, that's at the top of my bio, is that I'm a commercial real estate broker. Like, that's what I do. This is the spice. Right. So that's great.
Well, this is really what I do now, certainly focus wise. But, until October 7th, Jewish advocacy would have been 10th on my bio, and actor, Broadway performer, singer, musician, all of that stuff would have been 1, 2, and 3. So it's very recent.
By the way, 100% relatable. I mean, I don't think Jewish advocate would have been on my bio. I don't think it wasn't. It was just not a part of what I was doing. I'm a commercial real estate broker. I'm a TEDx speaker. I talk about nonverbal communication and special needs advocacy. I'm in the recovery world. I've got a podcast about live music fans who are in recovery, and like that's most of what I do. Oh yeah, and I'm a commercial real estate broker. And then October 7th happened, and it was like, oh my God, my friends, people that I was friends with, that I broke bread with, changed their profile pictures to paragliders. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, don't worry, you're one of the good ones. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not.
They literally used that phrase with you?
Though that phrase, somebody said to me, don't worry, you're one of the good ones. And I was like, by the standards that you're using, I am not one of the good ones. And I need you to know that. But
also, you dividing Jews into good ones and bad ones is incredibly racist and offensive.
Imagine saying that about any other minority
group in any circumstance.
Yeah. Actually, my and we're taking a sharp left turn before we even get started.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
My advocacy started because people asked me questions like, Benji, I'm reading all the stuff that Zionists are racists and, Israel's bad. Can you explain this to me? And so I just started posting videos explaining the answers to the questions that people were asking me. And every video caused 10 more questions. And so it just sort of snowballed from there. And I was just answering my friends' questions.
I very much relate to that. That's essentially how I got into the space as well, was just... people needed some clarity and some education.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to pay you one more compliment before we get into the Beatles stuff.
Just one?
And I'm going to just one. And I've said this in public in front of other people, but this is the first time I'm saying it to you. In your podcast, and this is slightly different now that you've changed the format to the 30-minute, but in the
that's
longer...
that's a side secondary thing. We'll be back on the regular one in September.
So in the original sort of hour-long episode, before the episode starts, you do a 5-minute monologue, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
I generally listen to podcasts at the gym, right? Or when
Yeah,
I'm
same.
when
Sure.
I'm driving, I'm on
Yeah.
the phone. But I'm at the gym, I'm listening to podcasts, and I'll like get up and fist pump and be like, yes, like exactly this. This is the point. Like, forget the fact that your guests are awesome and you've had some very important voices, both Jewish and not, and you've had some very important messaging in the general podcast schedule. Your 5-minute monologues are awesome, and they're poignant and they're eloquent, and they fucking rock. Pardon my
Thanks,
French.
man. I love that.
And
Thank you.
you do a great job. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into those. So it's very nice to hear.
It shows. It looks effortless, and it looks like it rolled off your tongue. And I know that you put hard work into it, but it really is. It sets the stage for a phenomenal interview every time. And I'm just like, God, he said that so well.
Thanks, man. That's incredibly high praise. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about the Beatles for a second.
Yes.
So the episode that we're on right now, episode 9, we're talking about the movie production, the guys who took them from clubs and stadiums to the silver screen. And we're talking about Richard or Dick Lester and Walter Shenson and Bud Ornstein. And these are the guys who made the movies. So Richard Lester was a director, and most people don't know him for Hard Day's Night and Help. Most people know him as the director of Superman 1, 2, and 3.
Huh. Not me.
So, do you remember seeing the movies? Do you remember, like, tell me about the experience of, like, the coming from your background and your movie experience and sort of family life and watching these movies. Talk about that.
So I have to take like one step further back, which is when I was about 8 or 9 years old is when I got introduced to the Beatles. And I really got introduced to them through my second cousins. Shout out to the Stern family in LA. They're my only cousins that lived in LA growing up. I had no first cousins. I had no grandparents. It was just this second cousin family. We were super tight. And so we spent a lot of time together. And I remember driving in the car with my cousin Susan was driving, and she was playing Beatles songs. And I was like, what is this magic? And the first thing I bought right after that, I was like, I got to get some music. And I got the double red album and the double blue album. I was like, I want all the hits. Throw me in. And I got those, and I was like, my life changed in that moment. Then I began my deep dive. Then I bought every single album and was listening to all of them in order and going deep and reading. And like, I just went full Beatles. And, you know, as I'm sure many of your listeners remember, this was pre-internet time. So it's not like I went on the computer and Googled who are the Beatles. It was like I just started getting everything I could find. And that naturally led me to the movies. And I remember going to Warehouse Videos, which I don't know if that was a national chain or just local to LA. It later became a Blockbuster and then now is, you know, a Pete's Coffee. But we would go every weekend, like in my house. It was like me and my sisters like rent movies on like Saturday afternoons to watch Saturday night when my parents would go out or whatever on Sunday. And I rented Hard Day's Night, and I rented Help, and I'm sure we'll get into this. I certainly as a kid, I liked Help a lot more than Hard Day's Night, but I rented Help over and over and over again. I watched it 100 times. I loved it. And then, you know, as I got older, we got into the like internet age. On eBay, I bought a DVD of Let It Be. I like found that. I found Magical Mystery Tour. I was watching that. I got Yellow Submarine. I was watching that. I can say unequivocally I watched the 3 of those many less times than I watched Hard Day's Night or Help. But as like I have vivid memories of being like 9, 10, 11 and just watching Help again and again and again as part of my initial, you know, falling into the abyss of the Beatles that I've never left and has stayed with me my whole life. It's why I learned how to play guitar. It's because of the Beatles. And, you know, as you alluded to, the songs, you did your deep dive, like every concert I've ever done ever, I cover Beatles songs. I will talk to anybody about the Beatles all day. and I'll save more for the rest of this conversation, but it's like a top. You wind me up, you let me go, I'll just go all day.
It's beautiful. It's great. I don't have to ask any questions. Just keep going. Just keep going.
I could. Do you want me to?
Yeah. Keep going.
So I mean, the other thing I'll say is, so I went to Liverpool and I went to their houses, and I went on a Beatles tour of Liverpool and got to go to the Cavern Club and where Penny Lane and Strawberry Field and like all of this stuff, which was absolutely amazing. I've gotten to see Paul in concert a couple times. I've seen Ringo in concert, and I saw a Paul concert where Ringo came out and they played together, which was amazing. Cool. I was, sitting there watching that. It was at Dodger Stadium. I think it was Dodger Stadium. And I was like, this is as close as seeing the Beatles as I'm ever going to get, is Paul and Ringo playing this half of a song together. And it's, my house right now, there's like a corner that's like the Beatles corner, where there's like, for my birthday one year, my brother got me an original Yellow Submarine movie poster, which is framed and hanging up on the wall. It's quite large, which is awesome. And then I bought this like original photo of them that had never been put in a museum or published or anything. I was at the Hollywood Bowl once, and they were doing this like exhibition, and I bought one of these photos of the four of them hanging out at someone's house in Hollywood, like at a pool. And it's like the four of them sitting on a diving board in somebody's backyard pool. So I have that up on that wall. It's like all around where my piano is downstairs. So I've got the Beatles photo, I've got the poster, I've got my Hard Day's Night movie poster that I got for college for my dorm room freshman year that I've saved, that I've never gotten rid of. And also on the piano right there is this amazing book, which I'm sure you've come across, which is the full orchestrations of every single Beatles song ever, notated out, every single instrument. It's like the greatest gift to any musician, where you can just see, the trumpet line, the piano line, the two guitar lines in tabs and notes and everything, so you can play any part of any Beatles song ever. That's also there. And then the last thing I'll say, and we'll get into your stuff, is I also own a bass that is not a Hofner bass, which is what Paul played, but it's an Epiphone that's made to look like the Hofner bass. So I have like a replica Paul bass, which is what I play.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, man.
I don't know. The last thing you said about the Hofner bass just brought me back to being in college, and a buddy of mine had a jam band. This was in the early 2000s, and he was playing a Hofner bass. And I was like, why are you playing that? Like, you should be playing a Fender jazz bass. Like, you should be playing a Washburn. Like, why are you playing that? He's like, because it's Paul McCartney's bass. That's why. Like,
that's it.
And he was just making these wild sounds, and I was just like, it's crazy. And he's like, because it's Paul McCartney's bass, dude. That's why. So amazing. I am thrilled to hear that you're such a genuine, like, deep dive Beatles fan. I think that you're going to really enjoy the other episodes of this podcast, because we've already interviewed some really amazing people and heard some really amazing behind the scenes stuff, and cool. I'm excited for you to hear it. So tell me about your thoughts about the Beatles movies. Like, are those considered good movies? Like, I'm not a movie guy the way that you like. Would you consider that good filmmaking?
Yeah, I mean, certainly A Hard Day's Night, I think, is, widely considered to be good filmmaking. And, I know you mentioned this in your live show, that it sort of, as the Beatles did for music, it kind of invented the language of how do you capture this band and their songs on film in a compelling way. And even outside the movie, the Beatles basically invented music videos. And then within that movie, they sort of, Dick Lester and companies invented super cool music videos in a movie. And the way they integrate the Beatles as themselves into a narrative, it was also super innovative, and they did it so well. I mentioned it wasn't my favorite as a kid just because it's pretty light on plot. I mean, there's not really much of a plot. It's just like everyone loves the Beatles is kind of the plot, and we have to get away from our fans.
Chase the bus.
It's not chase them. It's like, it's not really about the story there. It's about the guys and their music, which Now, as an adult, I can appreciate more and enjoy more, but Help is very heavy on plot. It's this whole caper that takes them sort of all over the world and all these different. It's very colorful. I mean, literally, Hard Day's Night is black and white, and then Help is
Right.
in color.
Right.
So that one was obviously, as a kid, much more appealing to me because it's a little goofier, it's a little broader, it's in color. There's all this zany stuff, and they're on bicycles, and they're on an island, and they're skiing, and all this silly nonsense. But so that one is less artful, I would say, than Hard Day's Night. You can I don't know if this is true or not, but it feels like, with Hard Day's Night, it was a little bit less of the Beatles being creatively in control and someone doing a really great job of saying, I'm going to help shepherd this for the Beatles in their own, voice. But Help
Right.
feels a little more like the Beatles were like, we want to have more of a voice in this. And so in that regard, I feel like it's a little less artful, a little more kind of zany. And then as their projects go on and they have even more control, the movies get zanier and zanier to the point where they're kind of unwatchable.
Right. I remember very clearly doing a VHS recording, like setting on the VCR to videotape Help and watching, and the lines would run across the screen because it wasn't good quality, and seeing them like jump from tree to tree to tree and seeing that transition and just being blown away and being like, oh my God, the cinematography of that, and just being absolutely dumbfounded and realizing that that's like as simple as it gets. But to a newcomer to film, like that was amazing.
What I remember, I mean,
eye-catching.
I haven't seen Help in many years. Like, I'd love to watch it again. But what I remember being struck by how each Beatle lives in their own house, right? Or it's their own,
Right.
yeah, and like they're each really funky, and
They
then
have to go places to meet. They're not just all together. Like, why aren't they all together?
right, and the like musical number from that one that sticks out to me is You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. The way they do that in the movie. Like I remember like something rises out of the floor, right? And comes but like the living room, I feel like is really like it's shot indoors, that song. And then of course there's like I feel like there's also a random guy who like plays part of it with them. But that one stuck with me as being visually kind of arresting and affecting.
Yeah. That's wild. That's wild. Well, the other sort of full circle connection in the production that I wanted to bring up was Bud Ornstein, who was also very involved in some of the James Bond films. So he did Goldfinger and From Russia with Love.
As a director?
He was I don't know if he was the director, but he was one of the executives involved in that. I'm not sure what his position is. I don't want to misquote, but he produced Oliver, the play, the musical, not the play, the musical movie. And that was a very big deal for him. And he was able to take his Beatles music video knowledge and experience and bring that into Oliver. And I thought that you would find that interesting. I'm assuming you're a fan of that.
I watched that movie a million times as a kid.
Me too.
Yeah. And one more small connection is Dick Lester, who we're talking about, the director of those early Beatles films, and I went to the same college.
Oh, so, which college is that?
University of Pennsylvania. And I remember being a student there and learning that. And I was like, oh, cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's funny. Well, you were involved in the production of Hair, and
at the Hollywood Bowl.
At the Hollywood Bowl,
2014.
So I went to yeshiva. I tell people I'm a recovering yeshiva guy,
Yeah.
right? So I went to yeshiva in Jerusalem with a rabbi who was the executive producer of the original production of Hair. He was a British guy. He was the manager for Foreigner, and he worked with Queen and like all. And but he was the guy who put Hair together, and
Cool.
I, out of respect for him, because he didn't like the fact, like he sort of mentioned it and then was like, never tell anybody about this. So out of
Mm.
respect for him, I'm gonna leave his name off of it. But he was very involved, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, there's another just Jewish contribution and collaboration. I mean, that's what this podcast is all about, is the contribution and collaboration. So
Well, if you're
um,
talking about, Broadway musicals and film and television, you're going to find Jews all over the place because Jews built those industries and have been working in
yeah,
them since they invented them.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah. I'm assuming you know that history and like the whole idea of Jews immigrating to New York in the late 1800s through the 20s and not being able to get jobs at other normal jobs, and so they sort of invented these jobs and invented these industries, and that those early Broadway, those early theater houses and actors, I mean, they were Jewish because they couldn't get jobs in other places. And even the same thing is true when the ironic and iconic Jewish law firms and Jewish accounting firms and all these sort of Jewish practices came because the law firms weren't hiring Jews, and so the Jews
Right.
said, "Okay, and why are why are Jews in the entertainment business? Because when the Jews were building these theater houses and they needed a lawyer, and the lawyer said, "Well, I won't work with Jews," the guy who was learning, going to law school was like, "I'll work with you," and so Jewish lawyers went into the entertainment business, and it was this sort of natural evolution of the world. And now it's this dirty, like, the Jews are in Hollywood and the Jews control. And well, okay, well, you sort of cornered us into this industry, and here we are.
Yep.
That's I think Haviv Reddick Gur would give a much more eloquent version
I
of
mean, but
the
that's it, man.
history,
It's
but that's
like
it.
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right, right, right. So, can you talk a little bit about, not related to the Beatles, about Wicked and, playing in Wicked and how massive that is and how much it's changed just in the last, year or so since the movie came out?
Yeah, it's very fitting to be talking about this while I'm in New York City, where I don't actually live, but I'm visiting. But the one time I did live here for a year was when I was doing Wicked. I played Fiyero, the prince, on Broadway, and it was a total dream. I mean, total dream come true, all the superlatives. It was just amazing. I mean, it's for so many levels. One is the fans of Wicked are amazing. It's like there's no guarantee that you're going to be in a show A that's good or B that's beloved, and Wicked is both. So just
Right.
like such an honor and a joy to be in a show that is so quality, where the production is so quality, and where the fans love it so much. I mean, people just coming again and again and again and sending mail and wanting to, being at the stage door and just so loving and supportive and excited for the
Yeah.
show you're putting on for them that's amazing. And, getting to get my Broadway stripes. It's just in terms, certainly in terms of my career, there's like a before Broadway and after Broadway. You get to enter a special club when you make that Broadway debut. Especially if you're playing a principal, it's like even another level.
Right.
So that has meant so much to me through my whole life. Like no matter what else I do, I'll be able to say, hey, for 350 performances, I played a male lead in a Broadway musical, which is, something I can really hang my hat on.
Yeah.
And it was a really fun time in my life. It was the year that my wife and I were engaged for that year. We basically got engaged, went to New York, finished my run in Wicked, came home and got married, and moved back to LA. So that was special. And, the lifestyle of a Broadway performer is so unique in the world. You're essentially, you're doing 8 shows a week, which is so many shows, and you're essentially free while everyone else is busy and vice versa. So like
Right.
you're free during weekdays while everybody's at work, and then everybody comes home and you go to work and you're up till late. And then on the weekends, everybody's off work and you're working the most.
Right.
So it's just like a sort of its own beast in terms of lifestyle, and you have to really take care of yourself physically and vocally, and energetically in a way that feels very much like being an athlete who's in season versus out. It's like you just have to have different protocols and disciplines while you're performing to maintain your ability to do it every night, and sometimes twice in a day or 5 times in a weekend. Those are the worst. When your schedule was Friday to Saturday to Sunday, those weren't my favorite. Then the schedule flipped mid-year, and one of the Sundays moves to a Wednesday. That's much better when it's when your last show of the week is the 2 p.m. on Sunday instead of a Sunday night at 7.
Right.
It makes a big difference. And it's a small community too, both in terms of Wicked is now its like own community because so many people have been through Wicked, whether that's on Broadway or on tour. It's just like a really fun thing to be part of the Wicked Alumni Association. And the Broadway community is small. There's only, I don't know the exact number. I think it's like 30 theaters, right? And so there's only so many couple hundred people performing on Broadway in any given night. And it's just a fun thing to be a part of. You're running into each other after shows. It's a 10:30, 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night and you're near the theaters. Chances are you're going to see some Broadway performers having dinner next to each other
Right.
in the same restaurants,
Right.
and the same, we all end up at the same events and performing at the same, concerts at Bryant Park kind of thing, whatever. And so I've just made a lot of great friends and relationships because of that time that have sustained through today. And in terms of like the last year since the movie came out, I'm not personally a part of Wicked anymore in any way. My father is. My dad produced the movie that just came out. So that's exciting. And it's just been exciting to see the world fall in love with Wicked in a whole nother way. I'm just happy like for Wicked and everybody involved, not just as a son who's proud and happy for his dad, but like as a member of the Wicked family, seeing that property handled so well. That was, that's the big thing you're all nervous about is like, oh my God, is the movie going to be good? And, the musical is so good on stage and so in demand. And, it's been running almost 25 years. Is the movie going to sour people on it? Is it going to get them excited about it? Is it going to pull people away from the box office at the theater or what? And the fact that they executed that movie to perfection, I think. I literally don't know how you could have done it any other way better in really any regard. In such a way as now the movie is as good of a movie musical as the stage musical is of a stage musical. It's an incredible accomplishment. It's just that like there are so many movie musical adaptations that stink or are at the best uninspiring, and
Right.
this one was just a home run in every way. So I'm just super happy for everybody involved. Everybody involved with Wicked at any level from any era is psyched to see,
Right.
how well the movie's done and how much people love it. And it's, incredible to have been a part of such a cultural touchstone that's going to, really stand the test of time. I feel very
Right.
proud of that.
It's the zeitgeist of kids today, very much the way the Beatles were in the 60s. It's just a cultural phenomenon that's wild.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you, I'm kind of a goofy girl dad, and I'm up for pretty much any experience that my kids will be smiling and happy and enjoying. And I've got a 15-year-old daughter who loves Wicked.
Yeah.
I've got a 14-year-old with special needs who is obsessed with Wicked. She loves music, and she will sit in front of the in front of the iPad and watch those songs, those videos, and just sing at the top of her lungs over and over. So when we took her to the movie, and I mean, they loved it. A couple of weeks ago, we went to the play, and I've seen plays that I've seen the movie first. I've seen plays that I saw the play first. I enjoyed the play. The play was really cool to be like, oh, they did a really good job on the movie, seeing the play.
Right.
I didn't know anything about the second half. I didn't I knew that there was a second half.
I've only seen the movie, right?
I've only seen the movie. I never read the book, and it's not that I hadn't seen. I didn't know the end of the story. I didn't know the second half of so I was there, and first of all, seeing the crowd erupt. I've seen crowds clap afterwards, but the crowd was erupting. I gasped a couple of times, certain thing. No spoilers for people who haven't seen it yet, but there were a couple of moments where dudes, I'm like, oh, and my daughter looks at me like, you're embarrassing me. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was coming. It was surprising. Well done. I mean, that was, it's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful story. It puts a lot of context around who is the good guy and who is the bad guy, and motivations and backstories, and the difference between what you're reading in the headlines and what's actually going on. And as I'm saying this wasn't intended, but as I'm saying this, I'm like, wait a second, this is a familiar message that we've been repeating for the last 22 months. Oh my God.
And not just the last 22 months, even though now, of course, it's taken on an even more sort of prescient meaning. But for the last 20 something years, I think part of why Wicked has been so successful is, unfortunately, a lot of those themes are timeless. And in every era, there is that version of, the line that I quote from Wicked the most is, it's something the wizard sings when he's sort of explaining himself in his song Wonderful to Elphaba. He says, the truth is not a thing of fact or reason. The truth is just what everyone agrees on. And, how many times has that come up in human history? I mean, it's just so universal. And the whole, theme of people in power not telling you the truth, people in power scapegoating people not in power in order to move an agenda forward, just those themes, the political stuff, aside from the really the human themes of, somebody being othered and looking for acceptance and all of that stuff, which is super universal. And I think another reason everybody comes to it over and over and over again. But that political stuff is also sadly very present, has been all along, and as you mentioned, has really, been illuminated in the experience of the Jewish people in Israel over the last 22 months, in the way that, when the powers that be use that giant microphone that everybody can hear to say one thing, it can be really hard if you're the 2 or 3 people who know the truth trying to drown out everybody else getting riled up. It's kind of impossible.
Right. And being told that you're crazy and wrong and evil for it.
Right.
I've read a number of articles about this same conversation or similar conversations around the current Superman movie, and how the director is like, I didn't make this political. This is the Superman story. And people are like, you talk.
That bothers me so much. First of all, I know a lot of the Superman people personally because, funny story, I train with the same trainer who trained all the actors in the movie, and trains one of the producers of the movie, and trains the wife of the director of the movie. So I'm very close to that movie, and I just know factually that we're not trying to do an allegory to current politics at all in any way. And then second of all, of course they weren't. They're making Superman. They're trying to relaunch the DC world. They're trying to make a popcorn movie. It's they're not trying to be political at all. And when you even trying to make it a political comparison, it doesn't even really fit a mold. It's just somebody grasping at straws to take a dig at something. It's guys, chill out. This is a comic book movie for mass audiences. What is it, PG-13 for PG?
Right.
It's not even R, and it's a James Gunn movie. All his movies are usually PG-13 or R. They wanted to appeal to even more people. So like, there's no way that they're investing these hundreds of millions of dollars and trying to make a political statement about like the Middle East. Like, give me a break.
Right. Right. It's I'm glad that you have the same take, because I read those articles before I saw the movie, so I went into the movie with a critical eye looking for it, and I was like, if there was a political message, it would be a confusing political message because it touched on both sides of the coin, and so you can't advocate for two sides of this of a political argument and call it a political message. It's confusing.
It's
and
like, what is the message that like Russia is attacking Middle Easterners who need superheroes to back them? Like, what is the?
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is. Like, you're making something up.
Right. So there was that, and then there was the Elon Musk and comparison, and like it was just absurdity. It was like it's absurdity. It's absurdity.
It's like, guys, Lex Luthor's been here a long time before Elon Musk was.
It's exactly right. He was playing the character from the book, from the comic books.
And he was also awesome. I loved his portrayal of Lex, Nicholas Hoult. I thought he crushed it. He was so like compelling for me. I thought like his intensity, usually, that character can be very, comic booky and like stupid movie villainy, and he played him in such an intense, kind of believable way. I thought it was great. And I like, not for 1 second did I try to or think that it was compared to something happening in the world today. Just like, come on. I understand where this sort of comes from in the fact that like I have an institutional knowledge of like how the sausage gets made in Hollywood that other people don't have. But like, people are so, nobody wants to think about Hollywood as a business a lot of the time. They think it's like, somebody's got some sort of message that they're trying to like deliver. It's a little bit, it's like with the Beatles music, honestly, to bring it back in, where people would be like, what are the Beatles trying to tell me about life? And they're like, we were like making weird shit up because like we did acid one time and had like weird things that like these lyrics sounded good, and like, we're not trying to say a message, we're trying to like write a song. It's like this Superman, the people who own DC 100% are not trying to give any kind of message. And in fact, if there was, they would have been like, get this thing the hell out of this summer action blockbuster. We are trying to sell tickets in the most non-controversial way as humanly possible. It's just, that's how it works.
Yep. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. So I want to ask your opinion and your insight on something. So in the live show, I tell these 14 stories of where Jews collaborated and contributed to the Beatles into, making them this, not to take away from the Beatles and who they were, but we aided and abetted, for lack of a better term, right? We were part of the story. And the takeaway that I have is most of these were either post-war or related to post-war. Even if you weren't in Europe, you were in, in the area, right? You were in the vicinity of a post-war Jewish world, and they were able to channel that energy into this creative process. And that gives me a little bit of hope for my 15-year-old who's going through, went through middle school with COVID and now high school with post-October 7th. And what's college going to bring? What are we going to be able to channel that energy into? And whether she's 15 and, whether you're 25 or 35 or 45, but, at some point, hopefully this boil is going to come down to a simmer and then going to cool off. And how are we going to channel that energy? And I'm very hopeful that we could do something positive. What do you think about that?
I share that same sentiment, Benji. I have tattooed on me, Gamze Yavor, this too shall pass. And that's my look at life in general, for good and bad. Like, the one thing that I can guarantee you is at some point, the war's going to end and things are going to change and the boil's going to go to a simmer. I can't tell you when and I can't tell you how quickly, but it's going to happen. It's just inevitably the situation will change. And when it does, as you said, I think, look, we've been through a lot worse than this as a Jewish people, a lot worse than like, assimilated Westerners giving us a hard time. We can deal with that and we're going to be all right. And if anything, we're learning a lot of really important lessons right now that are going to serve us really well going on into the future to ensure that we safeguard against this kind of negativity in the future. So I totally share your sentiment. And I feel like it's important to clarify, not in a hopeless, optimistic kind of way that like, I just always think it's going to work out. But like, I always think things are kind of going to work out because things change. Things always end up at some point in the timeline, things that are down go up and things that are up go down.
Amazing. I love that. And I'll tell you, one of my best friends in the world, a guy by the name of Yair, he and I were in college together. We were in Yeshiva in Israel together. We decided to go get tattoos one day and we planned it out for a long time, and we, chose the artist and, did a lot of research and a lot of homework, and this is what we're doing. And we went down to the village, and the tattoo artist was about 4 hours late. And so he and I sat on the hood of my car with a little, it wasn't a boom box, but it was essentially a boom box, listening to the Led Zeppelin album, Physical Graffiti, on repeat because it was the only CD that we brought because we didn't think we were going to sit there for 4 hours.
All right.
And so we just listened to Physical Graffiti sitting on the hood of my car. And finally the artist shows up and he tattoos my friend Yair first. By the time that tattoo was done, he was like, "All right, Benji, it's your turn." And I was like, I'm supposed to be at my aunt and uncle's house in like 45 minutes for dinner before Kol Nidre. I don't have time to get this tattoo right now, so I'll be back next week. And he was like, all right. So we book out of there. And I sort of was like, well, that passed, because what I was supposed to get was Gamze Yavor in a ring around my leg. And that was like, and I always refer to that as the tattoo that didn't happen. I've since gotten others, but that was sort of like, I was sure I was going to get it that day. And it's very cool to see yours. Can I ask why you got that?
Yeah. Sort of a couple of reasons came together. Like, I knew I wanted something Hebrew Jewish somewhere. I was like, I don't know what, but I know I want something that like makes me feel like as a connection to my Jewish identity. And I have always, as I said, like I've always liked the phrase "this too shall pass." Like that's not a new philosophy for me. That's something that I've thought of, that's always been with me, not always, but for a long time. It's how I look at the world. And I was looking for Jewish jewelry. I went on like a jewelry JEW kick. Shortly after October 7th, I was like, I don't own any jewelry. And so I started doing a deep dive and I was looking for stuff, and I came across this one jeweler, and she has these cool sort of silver pendants with little sayings on them. And the one I ended up getting says, Ezehu Chacham Halamed Mikol Adam, which means he was wise as he who learns from everybody, which is another sort of philosophy of mine. But one of them on there was Gamze Avor, which is not a phrase I'd heard in Hebrew, but then I saw it and it was like, "This too shall pass." And I was like, that's the tattoo.
Yeah.
And so then I went to, actually went and got it from an Israeli artist in Vegas who a friend of mine had recommended, just as like, you should get a tattoo from this chick. She's awesome. And then I was like, okay, if I'm getting a Hebrew one, I'm going to get it from the Israeli. So then I went to Vegas and got my tattoo. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. You and I have a lot of similar stories and sort of thought processes. And, I never wore a Star of David necklace pre-October 7th. It just wasn't something that was a priority for me. And now
I did when I was like in middle school, but like my problem is when I was younger, I just like lost everything. So like every ring I've ever had from Israel, I've lost. Every Star of David necklace I've ever owned, I've lost. Now apparently I'm grown up enough to not lose my shit. So now I can have nice things.
I think we can qualify you as a grown-ass adult.
Yeah.
So.
Now that I'm a grown-ass adult, I've yet to lose, not to jinx it, but I've yet to lose any of my beloved jewelry at this point.
By the way, we're both so goofy that that's not even the expression. It's a grown-ass man that that I meant to say.
What did you say?
I said a grown-ass adult.
Close enough?
Close enough. I'll take it. We're getting to the end of the hour. A couple of sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Out in the ether questions. So, it's interesting to see the Beatles and their path. They all went their separate ways and did their separate things, but their paths have crossed with the Jewish community many times, from Ringo and Paul marrying Jewish women, George and sort of his musical tastes and collaborators. And, those, what do you think if the Beatles were involved with making music today, and involved with the same Jewish collaborators, involved with new Jewish collaborators, who do you think would be the contributors and the collaborators that the Beatles would be working with today?
Do you mean in terms of like other musical artists who are Jewish and making music today, or just mean sort of in general who might Jews be that they, in what roles may Jews be that would interact with them?
Yes, like you think I think that John Lennon would get a real kick out of Timothy Chalamet and would end up doing something goofy with it, like whatever. However,
well, I mean, Paul and Ringo are still alive, right? So we can answer that question. It's like, how are they interacting with Jews? I don't know that they are in a like overt, meaningful way. I'm sure they have people in their orbits who are Jewish. They work in the music industry, they work in entertainment. There must be some booker, agent, manager, session musician, somebody somewhere that they work with who's Jewish. In terms of like Jewish celebrities or musicians in the game today, like, you like to think that, like, Matisyahu might find his way into like a Beatles Obla Di Obla Da kind of track somewhere. So much of today's music is not in the Beatles' direction, is much more, electronic and hip hoppy, and maybe at this point there'd be like country collaborations, but not a ton of Jews making country music. Although somebody did just I don't know his name, but one of my friends sent me one. There's a guy who converted to Judaism, who's like a down home country boy who makes like beautiful Jewish country music.
There's a band called Nefesh Mountain that makes really beautiful.
Love that. So it's a hard question to answer, but who knows? Who knows?
I'll tell you, I don't know if it was on your podcast, but I recently heard a theme that has been coming up a lot as I talk to funders about Storied, and that is the difference between Jewish forward content and Jewish adjacent content. Okay, so you, Jonah, being in the Broadway production of Wicked is Jewish adjacent content. You're a Jewish person who did something, right? You, Jonah, having a podcast called Being Jewish with Jonah Platt is Jewish content, right? Yes. And some people take umbrage with Jewish adjacent content being called Jewish content, and I don't. Actually, my dad and I used to have this argument all the time. We'd be sitting around Friday night dinner, and he'd say, the Jewish news is not Jewish news, it's news about Jews. And I'm like, an attorney, becoming a partner in a law firm is Jewish news. It's not Jewish adjacent. And we used to argue about that a lot. I bring this up because Paul McCartney is married to a Jewish woman, Nancy Chevelle, And I don't know if you remember Yom Kippur of last year, he went to synagogue and people took pictures of him. I think it was at Kol Nidre. And like, there was this, oh my God, Paul McCartney's in synagogue on Yom Kippur, flash of energy. And it was interesting to see, Jewish forward content coming out of, it wasn't out of Paul McCartney, but about Paul McCartney.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the idea that, that they were collaborating and contributing and, actively working with people in this Jewish adjacent environment, producers, agents, business managers, is relevant. But again, marrying Jewish women that's Jewish content, right? That's Jewish forward.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. I'm gonna wrap this up and let you get out of here. The two questions that I ask people at the end of each podcast is, there's two themes to Storied. The Storied is about two things. Number one, the Jewish contribution and collaboration to an artist. And number two, Jewish events today are appropriately difficult. They're hard. I'd say they often require a box of tissues and a therapy appointment afterwards, right? It's hard. And one of the purposes of Storied is to bring back the Jewish joy, bring back that Jewish, the pride, the happy stuff, that all the good stuff that comes with being Jewish.
Yeah.
When I say the words Jewish joy, what do you think of? What's the Jewish joy for you?
I mean, that's my whole lane as a Jewish advocate, is Jewish pride, Jewish joy, Jewish empowerment. That's what I try to do with my content. I've never been one of the, like, I'm not, these are important, but I'm not, and antisemitism.com. Like, that's not my thing. I'm not like Israel breaking news, current events. Like, that's not my thing. My thing is being Jewish is awesome. Many Jews are too afraid to embrace that, or too used to not embracing it, and like inertia's stopping them from realizing that, or too uncomfortable, or too not included to think that they get to enjoy it, whatever the case may be. And for me, sort of with everything that I am trying to do, it's to encourage people to lean into their Jewish identity and realize and explore and celebrate all the amazing things about being Jewish that bring Jewish joy, whether that's the values and like the wisdom that's within Judaism, whether that's the celebrations, the holidays, the life events, the just being together, the Shabbats, the Jewish singles events, like whatever that might be. That is the Jewish joy and the pride. And like, there's been so much, like we've accomplished so much as a people, and we're so integral to the functioning of the world in such amazing ways. And because we get shit for it, there's a lot of apprehension to be proud about that stuff. And so just reminding people like, hey, the fact that we invented Hollywood and there are a lot of Jews working in there, that's a cool thing. Like, we should be proud that we did that, not embarrassed because people who hate Jews say, look at these Jews running Hollywood. Don't let them steal our joy.
Right.
We're allowed to be proud of things that are objectively wonderful accomplishments. So I think that's important to remind people of too.
Well, I love that answer, but you didn't answer the question. What's your Jewish joy? What do you?
Oh, man. My Jewish joy, I mean, it's all of those things. Like I guess at this point, like if I had to give one answer, it would be my Jewish joy is igniting Jewish joy in others, seeing other Jews connect in a new way or feel included in a new way, or, I call it going full Jew, like leaning into their Jewish identity more in a way that they weren't before. When Jews go full Jew or allow themselves to go even just a little bit more full Jew, like that gives me great Jewish joy. And I just love connecting with people through that and seeing that be accomplished. Like that's my great work paying off is seeing that, and that makes me happy.
I know some Chabad guys who are going to love that answer. That's great. That's great. The last question I'm going to ask you, I think we've sort of answered it already, but what are the great Jewish collaborations that you see today, not in Jewish adjacent content, but in Jewish content? What are the great Jewish contributions today that you're seeing that are positive, that are good, that... And by the way,
there are so many. I mean, do you want to, in what field?
The ones that are impactful to your life.
Oh God. I mean, there's a bajillion. We are doing so much, and there's so many amazing Jews doing so many amazing things. Like off the top of my head, the first technology, like half the apps we use are invented by Israelis and Jews. Tinder, Grindr, Waze, like all of these things are Jews and Israelis.
Is that a theme? Like, I need to get laid and I need to know how to get there.
There you go. That's right. We got to figure it out for you. That's a way. In the media space, like I'll give shout outs to, I think, and I know for some people it's controversial, but to me the show Nobody Wants This is an awesome, a Jewish piece of content, totally Jewish forward, made by Jews, sort of for Jews, and also non-Jews, like a way to teach them about Jews in a really loving way. I love that. I'm psyched for season 2. I'm sure it's only gonna. I'm sure they've only learned from the feedback from season 1, so I bet it's gonna be even better. Oh, I just watched Happy Gilmore 2, and Adam Sandler very clearly took pains to go, guys, Happy Gilmore is Jewish. His kids are Jewish. They're kissing mezuzahs, and don't you forget it. Happy's a Jew.
I love that.
I love that. I was like, yes, Adam, I see you. I see what you're doing. I feel a lot of people give him shit because he's not out there on social media being like, leave the Jews alone. He's doing it in his art, and he's saying, and to me, that was him being like, guys, I'm with you. I'm a ride or die. Like, we love the Jews. Guess what? This cultural icon, he's a Jew. So I really love it. It was clearly very intentional. So that was a cool one. And then,
are you a Deadhead by any chance?
I'm not. I'm not really a jam band guy.
Nobody's perfect. It's okay, Jonah.
I've tried, man. I've been to a couple Fish concerts. Like I try to get into it, and then the noodling starts, and I'm like, okay, I've seen it. I'm gonna go home. Thank you for having me.
I hear you.
Just not a musical noodler, and also because I'm a singer, so I want great voices. And most of these jam band singers, that's not why they're the singer in the band, because they have amazing, beautiful singing voices.
Yeah, I will give you that, and it's something that is a conversation in my house all the time where my wife is like, "Okay, song, terrible voice," and I'm like, "Okay, but the guitar playing was incredible," and she's like, "Yeah, I don't care."
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is because there's a Grateful Dead song called "Terrapin Station," and there's a line in there where he says his job was to shed light, not to master. And every time I hear that, I think about my dad, who was an Orthodox rabbi, who used to talk about the difference between Jacob and his brother Esau. And, one guy's job was to go out and conquer evil, and the other guy's job was to just shed light and to bring light. And I hate that is that's the thing that's stuck in my head. And my dad laughs, he's since passed, but he used to always laugh that those lessons that he taught were in there somewhere. But I find that's true. And you said it in the previous answer, like when you said that's not my job. My job is to talk about the positive stuff, not to fight the anti-Semitism. And I think that I'm bringing this full circle to what you said about Adam Sandler. Like, yes, I have seen a lot of people talk a lot of shit about Adam Sandler and why isn't he doing this and why isn't he doing that? And the answer is because that's not how he's effective, or that's now how he sees himself as being effective, and therefore he's focusing on the ways that he can be effective, and that is normalizing Jewish life and bringing positive Jewish experiences to people who may otherwise never meet a Jewish person.
Exactly.
That is wonderful. I love that.
Super important.
That. So forgive me for needing to get that out through my filter.
No,
but what you said was poignant, and that is we do the best that we can with what we have, and that's it.
That's right.
So one more thing that I'm going to say that is a surprising piece of Jewish joy, and he's been on a number of podcasts in the last year. I think his social has sort of exploded, and I'm actually going to be on a panel with him in a couple of weeks, and that is Chris Cares None and his love of babka, and the whole idea of a babka king and this Jewish pastry and Jewish people just loving on a guy who's just enjoying Jewish food, I think is really beautiful. And I listened to that among all the other podcast episodes that I listened to. But I think you guys had a really great conversation and, just really brought out, what he's doing for our community just by saying, I don't know anything about politics. I'm just enjoying the food, and thank you for being cool people.
Yeah. And he rightly said in that conversation, like, man, it must be really bad for you guys right now that I say I like this babka and you guys are like, we love you. It's like, that's when I was like, damn, so they must be going through something right now.
Right. All it takes for you to love me is for me to like your food.
Right. For you to say something nice about us, we love you forever, because not enough people are doing it.
It's true. It's true. All right, Jonah, thank you so much for spending time with me and sharing your stories and sharing your insight and your knowledge. I appreciate the hell out of you. And I hope that everybody goes and listens to your podcast, and not just the first 5 minutes. Listen to the whole thing. You're really doing wonderful and amazing things for our community, and have a voice and a reach that most of us just hope for.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me an excuse to gush about the Beatles. Doesn't happen often enough for me.
Well, next time I'm doing a show and you're in town, you're going to have to come by and maybe sit in on one of the songs.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is recorded, so this is happening.
Book it.
Awesome. All right. We'll talk soon, brother.
All right.
That's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps the algorithm show other people this podcast. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, again, reach out. We would love to talk to you. And make sure you check out the show notes for the links to our socials and our sponsors. This show was produced by Ryan Storm from This Is Storm Sound. Editing done by Andrea Rizzuto. Production management done by Eric Nelson. Booking by Leanne Deutsch of 16 Mile Talent. Design work done by Tessa Hewitt. Research done by Avishai Bauman. Now, the music you heard is recorded by Evan Sherman, but was actually written by my late father, Rabbi Yosel Rosenzweig, as the original opening of the song that he wrote for the Diaspora Yeshiva band called Pit Huli. I'm your host and storyteller, Benji Rosenzweig, and this has been another episode of Storied, the untold Jewish stories behind your favorite music, Season 1, The Beatles.